You're welcome back. And here is Samson's take. I continue from where I left off last week. And I'm saying, go to the booth, to the polling station on the 7th, next week, and vote peacefully and leave. If you have to return later to observe the counting, you may do so. But whatever it takes, be very peaceful. Because you know what? Your life may not matter at all. Yes, your life may not matter to the state. I had the privilege of spending 2 days on Tuesday and Wednesday at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology at the 58th congregation, speaking to batches of thousands of graduates and encouraging them on the need to have Ghana in mind and to work to cut away all the wrongs, the corruption, and the bad leadership, the curse of leadership that we find in Africa. I spoke to them about plans, purposes, and pursuits. There are young people like such graduates who will be going to vote on Saturday. We need to protect them because they are the future of this country. The police and various parties have given assurances about making sure that there is law and order. And I questioned that last week because we have moved on after 8 people were killed in 2020. And we have not accounted for the 8 people. In Wenchi, a number of them took up a suit, a civil suit, and they asked the court, a number of those who were injured, not those who were killed, they asked the court to give them compensation, to order the state to compensate them for what happened. If you thought some of the comments I made last week were harsh and unfounded, I'm going to read page 18 of that judgment to you by Justice Frederick Naura. On page 18, this is what the judge had to say. He says, obviously, when firearms are discharged as a crowd control measure, there are bound to be additional risks, such as injuring or killing peaceful participants or bystanders, or causing further escalation of the violence with even more casualties. Thus, firearms may only be used when it becomes necessary to save other lives. Now listen to the judge. In view of all these facts, I find that the injury of the applicants by the states, the injury of the applicants by the state security forces was not based on any reasonable justification. The injury that the election task force of police and military caused to civilians who were voting, innocent people who were voting, and leading to the death of 8 people in 4 different constituencies across the country. This one in Techiman South, the judge says, I find, the judge has evaluated a host of facts, and it's a case in which the Attorney General was also involved, conducting a defense for the state and insisting that what the police and task force did, they didn't do any wrong. They opened fire because it was necessary and didn't intend to do anything wrong. The judge says, I find that the injury of the applicants, that's these 6 people who went to that court, by the state security forces was not based on any reasonable justification for the defense of any person from violence, or for the defense of property, or for the purposes of suppressing a riot, insurrection, or mutiny, or in order to prevent the commission of a crime by the applicants. They were injured as a result of the indiscriminate firing of weapons into the crowd by the state security forces. This is a judge making this pronouncement. So what happened, to my mind, was state-sponsored killing. And I repeat that. When I said so last week, I didn't say it lightly. Was state-sponsored killing of 8 individuals, Ghanaians. And it's 4 years on. We are going to elections next week, and we have not accounted for the life of one, not a single one. When I hear certain professors say this is a sham of a democracy, that's what comes to my mind. In Techiman South, those who died included 36-year-old Emmanuel, that's Odododio, I'll give you that. In Techiman South, 39-year-old Tajuddin Al-Hassan and 18 years old Abdallah Ayarik, 18 years, a bystander. Those who suffered injuries, their names are here. Odododio constituency. Those who died, 36-year-old Emmanuel Dompre, 15-year-old Rita Otu, state security officer, was involved. We were told that they are going to be prosecuted. Yeah, 4 years it takes to prosecute. Nothing. In Savilugu constituency, guess the people who suffered. They included 14 years old Samira Zakaria and 15-year-old Fusaini Musa. In the Blekuma South constituency, 30-year-old Ibrahim Abbas, he was shot and killed. Okay? A level 300 student, journalist at the Ghana Institute of Journalism, by name Pius Kwame Esiedu. I spoke to you about him 3 weeks ago. He's done multiple surgeries. He's struggling for his life. This is what the state has done to its citizens, and we are going back to the elections, and it looks like nothing has happened. Let me conclude. In Ashaiman, the military went there, shot in helicopter, and manhandled civilians. Parliament's committee found that 247 of the victims must be compensated for that incident on March 7, 2023. It was what I have said before. It was state-sponsored terrorism. Have they been compensated? Absolutely nothing has happened since. Let's not forget these things. They are not good for our democratic experiment, and those who do the wrongs must suffer for them. IGP, the military command, all of you who are giving the assurances, ask yourselves what we should do with those assurances if you have failed to account, not even a report about those lives that were lost. Samson Lardy Anyenini, and this is my take. I want a serious state. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. When we say it's your most authoritative, we mean exactly that. And we are streaming on multiple platforms for you. My guest, as you may have seen them advertised, Dr. Bosman Asari, Deputy Chairman, Corporate Services at the Electoral Commission, We have Suleiman Abrahima, Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante, Director, Policy Engagement and Partnerships at the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, CDD Ghana. Professor Kwesi Ening, Security Consultant. And in the second half of the segment, Nana Ohene in tow, the man who's been talking very blunt and direct these days, particularly to the NPP. He's Director, Elections, Planning and Coordination, Movement for Change. Alan Chamantin's group that is making a lot of inroads. Evans Nemako is Director of Research and Elections of the NPP. Professor Michael Pesa White. It's been a long time you heard him on this show, right? Or even publicly. He comes on the show as the political scientist at the Institute of African Studies, University of Ghana, and senior member of the National Democratic Congress. Kwame Nkrumah Bochio, my own mate at the law school. He's the General Secretary, Convention People's Party, and Kofi Koranteng, tough talking, presidential hopeful, the New Vision movement. So it's packed, and get ready, and we want you to be active and contribute to the discussion. The subject matter is a simple one. We are looking at making the elections credible. Remember, we are voting on Tuesday, and we are voting, the special voting will be done on Tuesday. Monday. Oh, why is Tuesday on my mind? On Monday, and then we have the election itself on Saturday, on the 7th. So thank you very much. Dr. Bosman Asari and my guests who are joining us via Zoom, thank you all for joining us. So I began, and with my introduction, by reading out a quote from Joseph Stalin. And he said, he says that it's interesting, but he has a background, so you can't blame him. He says, those who vote decide nothing. Those who count the vote decide everything. And this was a quote that was used by former Chief Justice Georgina Theodora Wood in her foreword to Mabel Akubanase's book, Pink Sheets, on the 2013 election petition. What do you say to this kind of thinking, which is also within the public, that you have been doing everything to disabuse the minds of people of? Dr. Sribo Kweku, head of training at the EC, says there is no way an election in Ghana can be rigged. It can only happen with the full cooperation of all stakeholders, including the EC and party agents. At every stage of the process, there are checks and balances, and it is impossible to manipulate results without everyone involved being compromised. So there can be rigging, except that you need everyone involved to be compromised. That is what is impossible to do, right?
Yes. I wouldn't, probably I will still add to what Dr. Sribo Kweku has said, but coming back to what Mr. Stalin, we know, as you said, he has a lot of history. But let's be very, very clear and objective about the system we are practicing in Ghana. No, in Ghana, at the polling station, for example, in this election on December 7th, we are using 40,648 polling stations. We know the MPP and the NDC, they are contesting the parliamentary elections in all the 276 constituencies. So the MPP is going to have 40,648 agents for their parliamentary candidates at all the polling stations. And per the policy directives of the EC, they are supposed to have others also on standby. In the event that any of these individuals decide that, oh, I'm not feeling well, I want to leave, you just call for the other person to come. And for the presidential election, the MPP and the NDC, they are going to have 40,648 agents, and they will also have backups. So what that means is that for both the MPP and the NDC, you have almost 80,000, 1,500 agents simultaneously at all the polling stations.
You don't have people doubling up as for the constituency election and for the presidential as well?
No, you don't have people. For the MPP and the NDC, you don't have.
All right.
Because, this election, the elections, critically, when you look at it, we have 277 different elections. One presidential and 277. And Ayawaso Central, those on the ballot for the parliamentary, they will not be on the ballot for the parliamentary in Adenta. So different elections. So, at the parliamentary level, although you belong to a party, you are also thinking about your interest. So the parliamentary candidates also have their agents. So what the Electoral Commission has always been touting is that when you have these agents, two at a time, NDC parliamentary, NDC presidential, at the same polling station, two at a time, and you have trained them very well. We don't see how somebody should be able to influence these two individuals who you have trained as a party.
Who are opponents.
Opponents. How do you allow others to convince them? So, and as a political party, you have had almost about 3 years, 4 years to be able to put these people together. Even beyond that, in this election, 2024, I think this is going to be the election where we are going to witness the largest number of observer groups. And now we are hinting towards almost 20,000. So literally, we are talking about one observer per two polling stations. Do you
count the over 4,000 journalists as part of the observer groups?
All of them are part.
Okay.
All of them are people we've accredited to go out there. And I know per the work you do as a journalist, if you go there and you suspect certain things going on, at times when they don't even suspect, they talk about it, let alone suspect it. So we think that the structures are such that, as Dr. Kweku said, if you really want to rig. So it's the reason why I disagree with what Mr. Stalin said. Because when you look at our voting, after the close, the counting is done in the full glare of the public. And yesterday we had a press conference and the chairperson said, elections are won. No, when we had the peace pact, that's 3 days ago, she made it very clear that elections, we've always known that elections are won at the polling stations, and that has not changed. The basis of the declaration of the winner of the parliamentary election is from the polling station. The basis of the declaration of the winner of the presidential election is at the polling station. So, because the counting is done in the full glare of the public, whatever is counted there, that forms the basis. So, we want to encourage Ghanaians that go out there and exercise the franchise. Because what you are going to vote for, or the person you are going to vote for, on the basis of that, that person would either be declared the winner or not the winner of the election. At the Constituency Coalition Center, it's just a matter of amalgamation. We are putting the figures together. But in reality, what takes place at the polling station is the basis of the declarations for the parliamentary and the presidential.
At this occasion to have the presidential pact, we also had the British High Commissioner making a statement. I don't know what you think about what she says. And I quoted her. She says, the signing of the pact, of the peace pact, is an important and welcome step in the electoral process, signaling the party's commitment to a stable transition. Like the Ghanaian people, the UK wants to see this country continue to flourish as a stable and successful example of democracy in the region and beyond. Unfortunately, my colleagues and I are frequently told by a range of people that they fear Ghana's 2024 elections will be less peaceful than previous elections. An election that's not peaceful would be incredibly damaging for Ghana as well as dangerous. Is there no basis for these fears?
No, I from where I sit and from the work we've done so far as Electoral Commission and from what we are seeing the parties do, campaigning, now when you turn on the TV, it's like the parties have taken over the television stations as well as the radio stations. So I will side with Excellency Madam Thompson's first statement. But I think for what others have told her, it's not something I will subscribe to. And I think that every time we have elections, you know, there are some people who tend to imagine certain things which have always not happened. I think as a country, we haven't so much matured in terms of democracy. However, we've done this for, this is the 9th time we are doing it. So I think that we are always getting better at it. So I believe that for those who are expressing some of these reservations, they should have confidence in the Ghanaian people that Ghanaians will go out there. I believe what Ghanaians want is that the process must be free. The process.
Do you know how the people of Ho West, Ketu North, Keta, Ho Central, and Hohoi are thinking about what has just happened? That there is ballot shortfall, and we are now going to cater for it a week to the elections. Do you know how those who are affected by, or the generality of the public is thinking about this seal that has been broken in one of the, you know,
Eastern region?
Yeah, in the Eastern region, in the ballot containment.
You know, I think, Mr. Anyenini, one of the challenges in this country, we tend to exaggerate matters, which it's like literally at times people can just say, oh, I've seen something doing, when in fact, that's the complete opposite. What happened in the Volta region is not unprecedented in the balance in the work of the commission. In this election, we've had almost about 7 or 8 regions that have shortfalls. In all these instances, the first time we wrote to the parties was on 22nd November. I think we had a shortage in Greater Accra, in the Western North, in the Upper West. And it's normal, it's part of the process. And since 92, even in 2020 when we printed, there were shortfalls. Now I think it's because of...
Why should that be normal?
No, what...
That you have planned the process over years, and then getting to the few days to the event itself, we are discovering that you have shortfalls.
You know, let me...
Shouldn't have happened in the first place.
Oh, when you look at... You are printing a volume, something almost about... in this election, we printed over 90 million ballot papers. 19 million for presidential, 19 million for parliamentary. At times, people try to paint a picture of perfectionism. You are printing ballots. And when you are printing, this is what we do. You've assigned a printer that print these numbers for me. And you also have some people who are supposed to check to be sure that we have those numbers. And as an institution, the structures we have put in place are such that we have multiple layers of checking. The idea is that about 4 layers. When it gets to the final point, their job is to also check. They shouldn't assume everything is all right. So in this instance, the first one that came up was even in the Upper West region. We've had something in Bono, Western North, even in Greater Accra. What happens is that when we do all the checking, we have even regional officials, party people to confirm the numbers. But what we've told ourselves is that once the ballots get to the regional capitals, all our district officers must also come. And when they come, they need to check. You are supposed to get 80,250 ballots. And the instances that happen in Ho, you know, in the Volta region, in some of the constituencies, you have about 10 ballot papers. And it's part of the process, and we've always been explaining. And this is not the first time, but as an institution, we are always perfecting. We are working on. When
you are telling me that this year we are going to have the most credible elections ever, I don't expect these things.
No, I think for the ballot, I think what will be a major problem for us? Can you imagine on election day, December 7th, you mentioned is it Ketu North? Then suddenly the ballots that were sent to Ketu North in the Georgia area, the ballots were not enough. Just imagine what would have happened in Ghana, knowing very well that the Volta region happens to be a serious area for one of the major parties. So, Commission has a system in place. Let's put all these structures. Once we do that, we should be able to address any challenges that will come. And those are the things we've done. And as we speak now, those ballots were printed yesterday. At the time we were even having the meetings with the parties, the processes were ongoing. And my understanding is that both the Bono and the Volta regions are getting the ballots this morning.
Right. And you have trained, is it in excess of 210,000 election officers recruited, and training is still ongoing.
Training is still ongoing. I think most of them should be wrapping up today. A number of them. Usually we use the classrooms, public schools, and you get them mostly on weekends. But a chunk of them have completed the training. But we know by our calendar they are supposed to wrap up today.
And BVDs, that's the biometric voting verification devices, have been delivered to 8 regions.
No, now they've been delivered to all the regions. All the 16 regions.
Sorted.
The last ones got there yesterday.
So in the police armories across the country, the voting materials have been delivered. What's the circumstance of these places where you didn't have the 5 constituencies where there were issues, Ho West, Ketu North, Keta, Ho Central, and Hohoi, the shortfalls? You said you were going to do the printing and you asked them to bring their officers.
The printing has been done and they are supposed to get all the ballots today. Today.
All right. So as far as you are concerned, at the Electoral Commission, you are set.
No, I think nothing is keeping us awake. There is nothing keeping us awake.
Okay.
The reason is that all the things we have to do, we have done them and we are continuing checking. But I think it's commendable that over 19, almost now, when you put them together, almost 38 million ballots. And we are only hearing that from the Electoral Commission that now almost all the constituencies, they have everything intact. They have their biometric devices, which very soon, because we have the special voting, the items will move to the district.
Special voting on Monday.
On Monday from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And the same protocols that will apply on December 7th, they are applying on December 2nd. And we have all these materials. We are moving them to the district police armories. Then depending on the nature of the constituency, in some of them, the distribution of the ballots and the other materials will begin 3 days to the elections. A place like the Front Plains, you can't do it 24 hours. You need some extra time. At times, it may even require the officials, you send them to the highlands 3 or 4 days before the election. And all those things are well in place.
Dr. Bosman Asare is going to be with us until we end the show, and he will take questions from all the stakeholders who are joining us, CSOs and the parties themselves. But briefly, tell us about this Koforidua incident where the seal to one of the electoral material bag was broken. What happened and how has that been resolved? The police says it's been resolved.
No, what happened was that, when we send the ballots to the regional police armories and get some few days to the elections, we transport them to the districts. And I believe the Koforidua incident, the transportation of the ballots from Koforidua to the Mpraiso constituency. And for each bag containing the ballots, you can have as many as 7 seals, depending on the number of political parties that have put their seals. And in this instance, about 2 of the bags, they had their seals broken, but others were still intact. And we have our team in place. They checked, they did all the checks, and they realized that nothing had been tampered with. And we saw it and we were like, this is not something we should even create any news attention. But we also concede that the nature of our adversarial democracy, our competitive democracy, is such that if you are not very careful, and I know per the work you are doing, you have had your fair share of those issues. When you think you are objectively doing your work, but others will try to interpret that to mean that you are doing something A, B, C, or D in that order. And the most important point is that all these ballots, before we even send them to the polling station, the agents of the parties are aware, the party executives are aware, they know what is going to polling station A, what is going to polling station B. So when these things happen, we should just take our time and let's look at the processes for resolving them. And I was happy the police later on issued a statement that everything had been resolved, and per what our regional director also told us, there is no cause for alarm. So we are confident going into the elections, and we are expecting Ghanaians, there are over 18,774,000 registered voters, to go out there in their numbers on December 7th. In 2020, we had a turnout of a little over 79%, and we are hopeful that they will go out there in their numbers so that maybe we can even do more than 80%.
Okay. Right. Now let me go on the line and begin to engage my other guests. Do I have Professor Kwesi Ening on? Because security is important, and how he gauges the question of security, even if the process is as foolproof as the Electoral Commission would have us believe. Prof, thank you for joining us. Do you share in Stalin when he says that those who vote decide nothing? It is those who count the votes that decide everything. Is this applicable to the Ghanaian election as far as security is concerned?
Well, I think they have applied in certain instances, but probably not in all. The essence of democracy is that every single ballot must count.
Right.
But if people make the assertion that it is those who count who matter more than those who have printed the papers in that box, individually, then that opens opportunities for mistakes to be made and for the results to be challenged. And we've seen in this country several times when issues of, pink sheets have created problems, and the transportation of some of these documents post the voting itself. And I think it's statements like these that contribute to creating what Dr. Bosman is characterizing as fairly small things that ought not to have, created the hula balloon that has gone on this week. But,
right.
Printer's devil does okay. Dr. Bosman and I are in the publishing business in terms of trying to write. So we do recognize that there are times when you may have fact-checked and others have done the review process, but still mistakes do occur. What is happening in the Ghana case is that when you have an institution that is always very specific and concrete in its statements and challenges those who may raise concerns about, the veracity of those statements, but then later on rescinds its criticism of opposing views and then changes its position. Then over time, it creates a basis for suspicion and for doubt whenever it utters something. So it's a learning process, yes.
Right.
But the essence of learning is to improve ourselves over time so we do not continue to make the same mistakes.
So we know that all things being equal, the process is actually very tight. And like the Dr. Sribokoku says, unless you are capable of compromising all the stakeholders, you will not be able to cheat. But I came to you on the security angle because there are circumstances where some commotion cannot occur. And what you expected of the parties to contribute to the credibility of the results will not happen, and the cheating will happen at that point.
Oh, most certainly. And Samson, if you allow me, let me go back to the peace pact that has been signed. Because of your point concerning our expectations of what the parties must do. The peace pact that was signed on Tuesday or Wednesday presupposes that all the parties share the same principles around politics in Ghana and the elections that we are entering into. That is a fallacy. Number two, peace pacts are built because certain issues have contributed to creating a groundswell of doubt and mistrust. And a peace pact, some of those doubts have been resolved, others are outstanding, and the peace pact seeks to resolve and improve the credibility of processes. In this particular case, quite a number of problems that occurred in and around the 2020 elections have been glossed over. So the presupposition that you can expect parties to behave in a particular way based on their own principles inherent in their party documents and the shared norms and values around democracy, democratic processes, and electoral processes does not occur here. And that is why the possibility of security breaches, in which one would expect the parties to stand firm and say, this is not what we want to do. It must not happen on our watch. If that violence, if those breaches inure to the benefit of particular parties, they will not stand up.
Right.
And that is why the argument is clear, and you can see it from 1992, that there is a positive correlation between unlawful behavior around elections leading to particular outcomes and the personal benefits that people also get.
Right.
When they ensure that illegality is in your benefit of their
Right. The British High Commissioner, Harriet Thompson, she says, unfortunately, my colleagues and I are frequently told by a range of people that they fear Ghana's 2024 elections will be less peaceful than previous elections. Is there a basis for this?
No, I think her calculus is wrong. 2024 will not be less peaceful. My argument, and I don't know which of her colleagues she's talking about, because I've also spoken to quite a number of her colleagues. And my argument this year is that the two presidential candidates themselves are individuals of peace. That their actions, their utterances, their behavior over time has created this, not just an impression, but a well-founded notion that they are not going to shed or hurt any Ghanaian just to gain power. That having been said, we don't also overlook the fact that there are very strong extremists in both parties, willing to do whatever it counts to win power. But it is the leaders, the signaling from the leadership that matters. And in this case, I think I will challenge the High Commissioner and her friends that she's referring to, and let's wait and see what will happen.
Why should people not have such concerns, particularly going into an election from a previous election where 8 people were killed and several others were injured, and a court of competent jurisdiction has found for some of those who were injured that, I quote the High Court, that I hold that there's respondents, that is the Ghana Election Task Force, the Election Security Task Force, as represented by the Attorney General in court. The judge says, I therefore hold that the respondents have failed to prove that their use of lethal force under the circumstances was justified and lawful.
Samson.
What led to the killings? What led to the maiming? What led to the injuries in the 4 constituencies across the country were not lawful and they were not justified. The IGP, when a petition went to Shraj, wrote to Shraj insisting that Shraj doesn't have a mandate. It cannot investigate the matters because they were prosecuting the cases through the Attorney General. 4 years on, no one is giving us any idea what has happened.
Samson, the Afrobarometer report is very clear about people's perceptions of trust, respect, about some of these institutions that you have mentioned. I don't want the judiciary to come and chase me. But precisely because the public, based on the Afrobarometer report, neither trusts law enforcement, the judiciary, and other critical institutions, and knowing what is happening around our neighborhood. Look, people are discerning. And I always challenge people to say, look, travel around this country, talk to ordinary people, okay? Listen to their concerns and use a language that they understand and can respond to you. And you would notice the notion that they are interested in fighting someone, in destroying their livelihoods, will not happen. These ambassadors who are talking this week, were it to happen, would they issue visas to people? Would they tell people, hang on, there's a crisis in Ghana, come to my embassy and I will issue you a visa? We know how immigration has become a core electoral issue in every single European and North American country. People are discerning. Yes, some people might want to create trouble, but we will not give them that pleasure. And I've challenged all those who have said it's going to be more violent. Both Mahama and Dr. Baumia have not uttered anything in the last probably 24 months that can be construed as inciting people to violence. Yes, some of their supporters may have done so, but I want to challenge the High Commissioner. But, you know, we can only do this conversation after the 8th.
All right.
She and her friends think.
Thank you. Hold on there. Let me move to my other guest. And Suleimana, let me hear you briefly on this, then I get to Dr. Kuja Asante and our other guests. So what's your level of confidence going into these elections on the back of the pledges that have been made by the various candidates, 12 of them?
Well, Samson, thank you very much. I think that it's good to have our candidates make these pledges. They are quite symbolic. They could have potential effects and all of that. But of course, the realities are also there. I don't think that any politician or any of the candidates would want to be seen to be somebody who is not committed to peace, because it could have electoral consequences. The NDC, for example, had raised a number of points and initially had said they would only sign the accord if those issues were addressed. I think there was a series of engagements between the party and other stakeholders, particularly the Peace Council, to get them to sign. The question we must ask is, those issues that they were raising, have they been addressed? And if they have not been addressed, is it the case that the party is saying, okay, we raised them, but now we've forgotten about them? They insisted that the IG must be part of that, the judiciary must be part of it, and also the Attorney General must be part of it. Yeah, but as I said, the question is, did those things happen? The answer obviously is no. They were present and made statements, but in terms of signing as a commitment, that did not happen. The other thing, Samson, that we must bear in mind is that there are a number of things that are happening across many parts of this country that are political, either politically orchestrated or have political implications. And by political, I mean even electoral implications. I think sometimes talking about whether the elections will be peaceful or not, we tend to perhaps look more at what will happen in Accra, what will happen in Kumasi, and some of the other big areas. And then we would say, oh, the situation is terrible. In 2020, we are talking about the situation in Techiman, where 8 people lost their lives, others injured. In Accra, Pius and a few others who also got injured. But we are in a situation where in one particular territory of this country, every day people are being killed. And we are 7 days into elections. And it appears that when we are doing our analysis and calculations about whether the elections will be peaceful, more peaceful or not, we tend to forget that. And certainly we all know that the developments in Boko, for example, has electoral implications. I mean, things are happening partly also because of the elections coming up, and the politicians are behind it. The EC at some point not too long ago had to come out to say that whatever the case may be, they will make sure that elections are held in Boko. In the event elections are not held because the gun battles escalate and so on, are we going to conclude that the elections was more peaceful? I doubt. And apart from Boko, there are other areas where, depending on who wins, the conflict may die down or escalate, and we know it. And therefore, the electorates in those communities are also, neck to neck in terms of making sure that their candidates or their favorite politicians win. And so I tend to perhaps agree with the assessment that a lot of people have anxiety and fears that if care is not taken, this year's elections might end up being perhaps more violent than maybe previous elections. But of course, we do have some assurances. I think that at this stage, maybe the assurances from the police can be taken more seriously than perhaps in previous elections, because at least we've seen the same leadership supervise about 2 or 3 by-elections that were uniquely peaceful and well coordinated in terms of the security issues. And so that should give us some level of assurance. And I've always had confidence in our armed forces, even though we do know that there are cracks in there are issues of disagreements and all of that. So certainly that should also give us some level of assurance.
Are you one of the range of people that the British High Commissioner has listened to? Professor Anyenini says that Harriet Thompson got it wrong. I think it's not about Harriet Thompson. She's telling you about what she has heard. And I think for Professor Anyenini, for someone who has just a while ago, taking on the EC for how it takes feedback and reacts to it. This is someone who has heard something and is giving feedback, and you just rubbish it. Is that what you think should be done? Yes, Sule, are you one of those who spoke to her?
No, Samson. Certainly, given my role and work, we engage with the diplomatic community all the time. We talk to the diplomats and their officials all the time. They engage, and I mean, of course, you do know that a lot of the work we do ahead of elections or elections-related work by almost every CSO is supported by these, international organizations. So I think that, of course, in my view, I have put it here that given the antecedents of what is happening in some of our communities and all of that, and the state has basically taken its eyes off, as if the lives of those people don't matter. Meanwhile, we are talking about not too long ago, Samson, just about a month ago, we had a situation where a traditional authority says we are imposing a ban on a political campaign of a particular political party, throughout 6 constituencies. And we say that's
in Baku.
Yes. And then we say that doesn't matter. We are in a situation where we all know, those who understand the Baku context will tell you that it is difficult for candidates of the MPP, for example, to openly campaign for their presidential candidate. And some of them are going about saying, well, you can vote for me, but decide who you vote for in terms of the presidential. Has this happened in Ghana before? Not. And if these things are happening, how do we rubbish the claim that people have anxiety that this election, perhaps, if we are not careful, could experience a lot more violence than before? So for me, it's a reality.
Okay, let me speak to Douglas Korte. Douglas Korte is development consultant and civil society elections management expert with the Institute for Democratic Governance, IDEG. Doug, thank you very much. Now, what do you say? Having heard from Dr. Bosman, Professor Anyenini, and Suleiman Ibrahima on the question of guarantee and assurances of peace and elections that can be said to be credible.
Thank you, Samson, and thank you to the other panelists, Dr. Bosman and Prof. I think for me and from where we sit, the UK's High Commissioner's point is valid to the extent that One, we are all aware that elections in Ghana have always been associated with cyclical risks. The fear is always there, and the anxiety is very clear. Let's put the statement in context. Why did she say so? And even you as Samson and other Ghanaians out there, what is the feeling? Yes, the concern was that this election is going to be very deadly, it's going to be very violent because of several factors, but I'll hint on two. One, you rightly mentioned in the earlier Samson's take about unresolved issues from 2020, electoral justice issues. Where there is injustice, I'm not sure there will be peace. And that is a statement that we've heard over and over. So once those issues were of concern to people, definitely there will be anxiety. Secondly, we also heard of issues of very provocative and inflammatory language from both sides. So for instance, when you hear Break the Eight and it says that we are not handing over power, what does it mean? And when you also hear that we are not resorting to the court in this election, what does it mean?
Who has said we are not handing over power? Who has said that?
Indeed, Samson, let's not go back to, I think we've already heard when the statement by the former, is currently the agric minister, and the concerns that raised in this country.
He said they are doing everything to win by all means, and to
by all means.
And if they have to hand over power, they will be handing over power to one of their own, as the president has also underscored. But subsequently, the president has made statements that we should be taking rather than the earlier ones, right?
Samson, that's where you need to put it. That's the context. So prior to election, these were the discussions that were happening. So that created the anxiety, that created the fear, that created the concern. But then subsequently, per the engagement, you hear that people have toned down. President says, I'm ready to hand over power to whoever wins. It calms the nerves. And let me take you back to 2008. If you recall, going to time, there was concern about whether they will be handing over. President Kufuor came out with a statement, and that calmed the nerves. So the point that is being made is that we are in a situation where these risks come up. The interventions that we put in place is what help us douse whatever anxiety there is, and then reduce the violence that we expect. Finally, let me also add on the issue of the peace pact and how it is symbolic nature. Yes, it's symbolic. But the NDC raised a number of issues, some of which we are even discussing, that is conditions that they would want to sign. If, for instance, you send observers to a collation center and you cannot guarantee whether they will come back safe or not, you should be worried about that. So that is a condition that we needed the IGP or the National Election Security Task Force to come in to really commit to tell us that, well, this time around, we will ensure that maybe live bullets will not be used. All these are concerns that we need to take in consideration. So for us and civil society, what we are saying is that, yes, prior to, let's say, around August, peace pact was not going to be signed. There was tension. People felt that if it's not signed, a lot of chaos will happen. It's been signed. What is the next step? How do we ensure that concerns, for instance, about trust in the institution, electoral commission, the police, even the judiciary, and the Afrobarometer rightly points to that. Democracy is really about norms. How do we play to those norms that ensure that whether we win or we lose, we respect the rules of the games, and if there are any concerns, we resort to court. These are the issues of concern, and I think so far we've moved on, we've done quite well, and these elections, that is where I drift to side with Prof. Enin, that yes, with what we've done so far, if we should maintain it, likely the elections will go out peacefully. One, let me also add that if you observe election in this country, the voting process often goes on smoothly, but it's the issue of counting, collation, and declaration of result. And that is where we've created a lot of problems since 92. We have left the elections management model to the political entities in terms of the political parties. It is their turf. Where are the citizens? We have the sovereign will. So until the citizenry take their role and they ensure that their votes count until the institutions, police and others, realize that, look, media and all others are stakeholders. It is our collective responsibility. Open up the space. Let us all observe so that issues of rigging, mistrust, and suspicions can be dealt with. Like Dr. Bosman said, yes, it will not be rigged, but to the extent that everybody is compromised, yes, we can say that elections are rigged. And that is where I think we all have a role to play. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So a number of issues coming up, and I will try to follow up a couple of them, including particularly with Dr. Bosman. And Dr. Bosman is going to be with us throughout, because we have the second segment where you have the political parties representatives joining us to also share with us whether they think that the EC is actually ready, and they themselves are ready, and we are exacting from them what they have to do to make the elections credible. Dr. Akujah Asante is also with us. But let's listen to some of these candidates as they made their commitments in signing the pact.
Today, to place on record my personal commitment and that of my party, the National Democratic Congress, to the sustenance of Ghana's peace. At the very outset, let me indicate that we in the NDC remain eternally committed to the building of a peaceful and prosperous country in which the aspirations of all our people can be met. Our active participation in this event is an indication of its importance in the overall effort to guarantee peace and ensure the preservation of our nation in the aftermath of the upcoming elections.
As we approach the home stretch for the elections 2024, my plea to everybody involved in the electioneering process, including candidates, political parties, electoral officers, voters, the media, security, and the general public, is to take responsibility for ensuring peace and harmony seriously, and to demonstrate that we are not reluctant Democrats. My hope, and that of the MPP, is that we will come out of this election stronger as a nation. We are hopeful all sides will take some positive steps to preserve the unity, peace, and stability of this country.
Of course, there are not only two people who were there and made pledges, so we'll share some of the other with you as well. The IGP, the Chief Justice, let's hear some of them.
This country is ours. We love it. We want peace. I give regard to the IGP. I give regard also to the Electoral Commissioner. We're all here to make Ghana a better place.
Biggest problem confronting me as a flag bearer and as a father and as a member and as a Ghanaian. And I'm appealing that if we can look into the Boku matter, it will help us achieve peace before, during, and after the election.
Our country, Ghana, has been with peace for so many years. We have been on elections several times. And when we talk of Ghana, our country is jealous for peace in our outside countries. We have done it before. And I will urge each and every Ghanaian to let us do it one more time.
There will be peace when we all go out and vote for Kofi Apalu and forget about MPP and NDC. Because when you vote for...
As a commission, I'm pleased to note that we have walked the talk of peace. Mindful of the fact that attaining peaceful electoral outcomes will depend on our actions, we have right from the start of our electoral processes consciously operated and carried out our activities and conducted ourselves in a manner that would ensure peace before, during, and after the election. In doing so, we have embraced three essential ingredients, which in our view contribute to peaceful processes and elections.
You're welcome back. This is Newsfile Special, focusing on the elections and asking how we can guarantee credible elections next week. And I'm going to Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante. Now, of course, you know that our guests in the studio have been Suleiman Abrahima, Dr. Bosman Asari, also Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante, who is just about to speak, Professor Kwesi Enin, and we have also been speaking to Douglas Corte, but shortly we'll be joined by a next set joining Dr. Bosman. Nana Oheninto will be one of them, Evans Nemakom, Professor Michael Kwesa-White, and also Kwame Nkrumah Bochio, as well as Kofi Karanting. Now, just a couple of your messages, and I go to Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante. And this one says, obviously, the EC has no idea what it is doing. I think this is too. You don't do that. Has no idea saying. Just say the specific thing you are against, right? It's all over the place, making basic and avoidable errors at every turn. The EC is trying so hard to normalize mediocrity and gross. Okay, I will not continue this message because it doesn't reflect the facts. If there's a particular thing you think they have done wrong, you want to criticize, you're entitled to criticize. And we should be able to project that. But this over broad, it's okay, I'll end it there. Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante, do you feel all is ready?
Yeah, good morning to you, Samson, and to the panelists, and to all Ghanaians. First of all, I am asked to remind you that it appears you are celebrating International Men's Day today with your panel. So you have to find a way to celebrate an International Women's Day before the election so that you can cancel.
I've noted that. My producers have noted that. We have taken a lot of bashing on social media for an all-male panel when the men involved are almost a dozen men, and there's not a single woman. We appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. So, Samson, I think let me start my contribution by saying that we have come a long way since the biometric voter registration. I would even say since last year. We were worried about the absence of the NDC at IPAC for right after 2020 elections. And the MPC and many stakeholders worked very hard to get the NDC back at IPAC. And I think Dr. Bosman himself can confirm that with the return of the NDC, a number of consensus building decisions also were taken very quickly, helped us to get into the biometric voter registration process. We had difficulties, but again, with IPAC working together, we were able to overcome all of that. The other thing I have to also commend is that in the last couple of months, at least, we've seen the Election Security Task Force also spring into action in a much more proactive way to engage all stakeholders, to give the necessary assurances, to give some more detail as to its setup for election day. And I think that has helped to improve some of the issues that we were sort of drawing attention to. But for me, I think I want to take it from your editorial today and the issue of accountability, because I think we can only continue to preserve peace and promote peace if people are held accountable for violations of the law. But it appears that when it comes to the security sector, we have a hesitancy to hold people accountable. And I think in a command and control structure, if accountability doesn't exist, that presents a huge problem for how you impose discipline. The state officers, security officers who conducted themselves during the elections, where the courts have found that they illegally basically caused fatalities and injuries, if there's no accountability held, it means we are sending a message that the security sector is above the law. You cannot build any society that way. And I think that this is one of the biggest challenges going forward, because governments, from all governments that we've known, always have this hesitancy to ensure that accountability applies to all. It is in that context that, for me, the security issue, there are still some problems that we have to address so that we don't have the problems we had in 2020. First of all, is really, for me, the participation of the Army. We've had cause to raise issues as to exactly what is the role that the Army is going to play. And we've gotten different answers, some not with any clear sense of how they are going to operate. We know they are not going to be in polling stations, but we know in the past they have been in collation centers. Are they going to be there again? And what is going to be their role? We understand from the Election Security Task Force that they are sort of the 4 tiers last resort. Fine, but it is important that the public understands what the security arrangement is going to be, at polling station, at collation center, so that when they see something, they are very much it affirms their expectations. All the times I've been, doing elections and doing that for 20 years. The issue for me is never the miscreants or the groups of people who might disrupt election. It's whether or not a large part of the public might go out or get agitated because they think that something unfair is happening. And the only way you cure that is to give clear information as to what the do's and don'ts are going to be at the election, what the ordinary voter should expect, so that if something is happening, they can make a discerning decision that this is above board and there's nothing going on. That is where the security problems can come in. As for 1 or 2 people, a group of people, the security is well, set up to deal with that. So that's never a problem. So we've always insisted that the issue really is about clear information around security. That's so if the Army is going to be involved, how exactly are they going to be involved so that when people are there, they know exactly how to behave. The second issue with the Army is that we know the Army standard operating procedure is one of coming to neutralize. And that's a basically shoot and kill, order. We've had fatalities like that in 2020. Are we going to use that same SOPs for crowd control if they are going to be at the collation center? We need clarification on these things so that under the unified command of the National Election Security Task Force, what are the clear instructions so that we can minimize fatalities? There are 3 other points I want to make, which I think should help us, even in this very small window, to help minimize any issues of conflict and violence that may arise. One, we have had a lot of discussion with the Electoral Commission about the setup of the collation center, and I think they have done a lot of work trying to make sure the coalition centers are spacious, this properly organized. The IGP has made elaborate statements about how they're going to organize the place. For me, the key thing is that it's very important how the public who are outside or close by or whatever are able to see or know what is going on in the coalition center so that they don't have to rely on third parties for information. It is part of those rumor mongerings that gets people agitated and all of that. And it's part of the setup. How that setup is done, I think will be very, very helpful. And the more understanding and clarity we get on that, that's fine. Two other points. Correction of errors on the result sheet. This is something that we have worked on as part of the election reform and monitoring group. And we've had extensive discussion with the Electoral Commission. The Electoral Commission has now clarified very clearly that at the polling station, if there are any mistakes, there will be a council using a blue pen and signing against it. If it is happening at the collation center, it will be a red pen signing against it. At the regional, it will be a red pen. What we have said is that is all fine, and at least now we have a standard. We need to publicize that standard for all party agents, for all observers, for all media to understand that this is the way to correct a mistake on the result sheet, so that is standardized across all constituencies, a regional collation, a national collation, whatever. From where you sit at the CDD, sorry for cutting, from where you sit at the CDD, is the EC ready? Is the election security ready? Yeah, so let me finish this point. Let me finish the point I'm making, Samson, and I'll answer that question. So the Electoral Commission made a commitment to publish an aid memoir on the correction of mistakes so that everybody knows what is going to happen. And I hope that we can still see that aid memoir. The last thing is on the petition of parliamentary elections. We know that the rules of court is not going to be able to publish new guidelines. But what we are hoping is that between now and even the election is just a few days, we can at least get some practice gyrations to try and minimize the long, 2 years and so on, petitions that goes on, so that we can have a reduced time. So for me, I think these things are very, very important. Now, your question about
what did you mean?
I would say,
sorry, you said the long 2 years petition. What do you mean?
I mean the parliamentary petitions that happened.
But you have made submissions to the Chief Justice, and the Chief Justice has been positive that new rules are coming that will look like the presidential election rules as well. Now, by the presidential election rules, 42 days, the an election petition is over. So we expect that parliamentary elections will be done within less, right?
Yeah, the only problem is that there's few days into the election, and I don't think the rules of court, can succeed in providing new rules. But at least practice direction is still within.
Well, the rules of court committee, they are not affected by the election, so they can do their work. All right.
Let's hope so.
Okay,
thank you. So that the point about whether they are ready. I would say, giving all in terms of moving logistics, the regions and so on, I think, by basically from all I hear, by the weekend, most of those logistics should be there.
Okay.
So apart from that, that means that really all the other issues that, there's no anticipated problems that we have, but elections, there are always issues that come up. Question is how quickly you are able to resolve them so that you can.
So in a minute to that question, from where you sit as a CDD, an important, CEO like that, CSO like that, is the EC ready? Is the election task force ready?
I would say 90%. The task force, I would say 80%, because as I said, the issue about the role of the army for me is there's still some clarity there that we need to understand.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Do you have any question for Dr. Bosman? If you have, let me know about it before you take leave of us. Dr. Kwesienin, Professor Kwesienin, thank you very much. And I'm coming back to Dr. Bosman in the studio. But Professor Kwesienin, do you have anything to say finally? Hello, Prof. Hi, Professor Kwesienin. I'm asking if you have anything to say as your concluding remarks.
Yes. Well, I've said this and I've said it constantly. This is the only country that we have. I think we have these elections several occasions, that irrespective of whatever weaknesses there may be, I think we should all go out there a week from today, vote, go home, come back, provide the distance, get the counting underway, checked very carefully, and then let us celebrate, irrespective of who wins. First is Ghana that has won, but secondly, the hard work of keeping the victor working for Enterprise Ghana begins, when the victor has been declared. And I think we all owe it to those who fought for our independence and for generations yet unborn to ensure that this country is stable and peaceful. But more importantly, that there is no room for the statutory security forces to threaten and to intimidate on that day.
There's no room for them to threaten or intimidate. Thank you. Let me go to Douglas Corte. And Douglas Corte, when you are done, let me know if you have a question for the EC. What will be your concluding remarks? Since you seem to be in the view that all is set and we are in a mood that ought to be carried forward to next week.
Yes, I think something for all of us, we have a responsibility, and like I've mentioned, as citizens, we have a role to play, whilst we also look up to the institution. What is needed is very clear rules, clear information dissemination, and together we would ensure that these elections will be peaceful. In terms of the EC, yes, the preparedness is there, but I would think they've done it before in terms of communication. We will need a lot more rapid information dissemination, and also taking up some of the issues that come in a manner that is not adversarial, because often when questions are raised about the institution, it's like you guys don't know what you are saying and we are on top of issues, and that's where that happens. And finally, I think the message to the political parties, I think to the extent that they are committed to peace means that they are also committed to the rules of democracy, which indicate that in an election, definitely there will be winners and then there are going to be losers. Whatever happens, like football, the decisions should be respected, but it's also ensure that their agents at the polling stations, and that is where my interest is that in terms of the observation, the counting, and the processes, they shouldn't fall for misinformation and disinformation, which is a threat to credible and peaceful elections. For Dr. Bosman, I think all of us are supporting the EC to get their work done, and we believe that as issues come up based on the deployments that we've done with election observers, we will work with them to ensure that the elections goes on peacefully.
They are promising the most credible elections ever in the history of Ghana.
Pardon?
They are promising the most credible elections ever in the history of Ghana.
Well, I think as a researcher, I would say that the outcome is what we tell. But to the extent that we all follow the rules and go by what is expected of us, yes, it will be credible. But I have not seen credible elections in Africa. Always concerns about it, and that's
all right.
Thank you.
And I take it that you have no question for him as well. Suleimana, let's hear you. I'm sure that you will be remiss if you said nothing about the accreditation for journalists. That, of course, has now been boosted to 4,000 4,000 plus. Yes, 4,500. Yes, Suleimana.
Yeah, well, Samson, I think that it was a good step. I think the first step that was taken was a wrong step. I'm happy that after we spoke against it, they reversed to do the right thing, because right from the beginning, they ought to have engaged the stakeholders that they engaged, particularly the GJA and GIBA. I would still want to emphasize that, yes, we do recognize that radio and television are perhaps the dominant platforms in terms of media, but of course, we cannot write away the print media, the online media, and all of that. And I believe that the first step in terms of referring to media by just narrowing it down to TV and radio is something that has been reconsidered. But what's also important is that we were fighting for the accreditation for the media, not because the media are stakeholders that must just be involved. It's because they have a critical role to play. And therefore, to my media colleagues, I think that we also have a mandate to justify why our demands were justified, if I may put it that way. So acting professionally is not something that we can compromise. By the numbers, I think it comes down to about 16 journalists or so to a coalition center. If you divide the 4,500 by 276, it comes down to about 16 journalists on the average to a constituency. And I think that is quite a considerable number. So yes, we are grateful that this happened, but I would also call on my media colleagues to do the right thing so that at the end of the day, Ghanaians wouldn't be blaming the media for some of the misreporting, misinformation, false information, and all of that. We should rather say.
I was doing media training for a group of journalists just 2 weeks ago or so, and I was surprised to hear journalists suggest that if they got to the polling station or collation center and they saw anything wrong, they would rather, act as if they have not seen the wrong for fear of suffering violence. Well,
I cannot entirely blame them, because we know what has been happening over the course of time, particularly under this government. But what I would say to them is that as journalists, yes, our work comes with some level of risk, and the value in us is what we do even despite the risks that we face. You are there as a journalist not just to observe, but you are there to report.
Thank you.
And you must report what you see. All that you have to do is to be sure that you are factual, you are accurate, and there are no, sensationalism and all of that. But I just want to re-echo the point that journalists are not there as observers. Journalists are there as reporters. And the nation must know what is happening at the various areas of voting, depending on reports from journalists. What is critical is to be sure that we are giving our audience the accurate reports in terms of developments across the country.
Thank you very much for that. And I suppose most of them will be watching, because a great and large number of journalists watch Newsfile. And I understood them to a point that kind of fear was because of the sense of lack of protection for the journalists.
Absolutely, Samson. And that is why I perhaps refer to what has been happening over the course of time. You mentioned pilots in your take, and we are all quite sad about what has happened. A situation where the perpetrator is known. The matter has been reported to court, and for almost 4 years now, nothing has happened. An indication of how the powerful can just commit crime and go scot-free.
The case has not been called, I understand, the last 2 years, because the police referred the docket to the Attorney General, and that's it, end of action.
Yes, because the perpetrator is powerful. The perpetrator is associated with powerful people. And what that means is that they can a person like that can commit crime with impunity.
Why should a national security officer be a powerful person? They are supposed to be employees of we the people.
Yeah, but Samson, Your power is based on what you are able to do and what your associates enable you to do and how you can do things with impunity. It's not about your strength. It's about, who you are associated with. So if the state authorities, were such that they don't endorse impunity, by now this thing would have, the perpetrator would have suffered the consequence for what he did. And so some journalists would look at this and say, hey, if I go and I put myself on the line of fire and then I end up like Pius, what do? I leave my wife, I leave my children, and other relatives to suffer. But as I said, I think we have to act collectively. We have to fight together. This is the only country we have. The role of journalists is so crucial that we cannot abandon it. If it were so, then we don't have to even fight for the accreditation. We fought for the accreditation because we want to bring whatever is happening at the various places to our audiences. If it is just to go there and observe, I think there are several observers who are coming into town. So we need to, be resilient. We know that the seriousness of, the press freedom repression that we face. But I believe that as we go into these elections, things might be different, and journalists should be able to report accurately and fairly without fear and without thinking that anything can happen to them, that people can go scot-free.
All right, thank you very much, Suleiman Ibrahim. And the reference to Pius, at the time, Pius was a level 300 student of journalism at the Ghana Institute of Journalism. And I spoke to you about Pius 2 weeks ago, and I appealed to you that you should support Pius. He's undergone multiple surgeries. Multiple. When I say multiple, it doesn't mean 3. It's actually more than that. You don't want to put too much of his medical situation out there, but he's struggling for his life. He needs $65,000 to do a certain transplant in the outside of the country, and that's the money he's looking for now. He's literally dying. I thank the few of you who got in touch with me and expressed willingness to support. Please, I'm begging you, if you can, help us. Contact me at samson.lardy@myjoyonline.com. Samson, SAMSON .Lardy, LARDY @myjoyonline.com. Just contact me and say that you want to support Pius Siedu. He was fortunate. He was not killed on the spot. But Ibrahim Abbas was shot and killed on that same spot at the Ablikuma Central constituency. Guess where this was happening? It was at the Odoko Police Coalition Center. And this National Security Officer appeared in court once, twice, and looked botched. And that's where I am angry really about, very livid about the situation, that in all the 4 constituencies where the shootings happened and a total of 8 people were killed, several others, dozens, were injured, the police, the Election Security Task Force that is making the promises today, can't give us a report of what is happening now. A petition was sent to Shraj by Okudzeto Ablakwa and one other MP for investigations. The police wrote to Shraj and said Shraj cannot be investigating because there's a criminal process that is ongoing. So what is happening? This is what the police said. There was a letter signed by, dated 14th October 2021, signed by Chief Staff Officer Alex Kwame Safo Edu on behalf of the Inspector General of Police. And among others, it said, quote, I am directed by the Inspector General of Police to respectfully convey that the complaints as stated in the petition is currently being prosecuted by the Attorney General's Department. So Shraj, its powers were ousted. They couldn't go on because the matter apparently were pending before court. It took a few others to go to the civil court, not that the state is acting. About 6 of them or so who went to court, and to have a judge say that there was no justification for what had happened. All right. So, Dr. Bosman, as you hear, it looks like you've done some good work so far. The politicians are joining us shortly,
yes,
and I'm sure they'll tell us a different story from what the CSOs are telling us.
Oh, I expect the politicians to say the same.
Because they are in the midst of it all. They are in the thick of affairs.
And you know,
so they should have some stories.
Everything we have done is in the open. So what the CSOs are saying, I think the politicians have even seen it more, because they have gone around all the country. Mr. Cortez said something. I think he mentioned that most of the problems we've been having in our elections has to do with the collation center. And it's the reason why the EC decided to bring some restrictions. This year, the collation centers are different from what we've done in the past.
How different?
The difference is that based on the reports from the 2020 observers, they did outline that in a number of the collation centers, there were disorderliness. People who were not supposed to come there even came there. And the other coincidence you mentioned, part of that, the Techiman issue. So this time what we have said is that anyone who will be at the collation center must be accredited. And we've noticed that a number of our constituencies, to get a fitting place for the collation is very difficult. It's the reason why we came up with a requirement that observers will be there, agents of political parties will be there. So let's have a certain number of media houses. Because if we are not very careful, you have a collation center, probably could accommodate only about 50. If you give unimpeded access to the media, then what that means is that observers cannot be there. And we shouldn't forget that people have traveled all the way from different parts of the world. So we decided, but with what the media came out, we reached out an agreement with them that we're going to give them 4,500. So when we look at what we've done at the collation centers this time, we are very confident that...
I'm interested in the specifics.
Oh, in terms of yesterday at IPAC, we told them the requirement. The place must be in a very secured neighborhood. Apart from that, it must be walled, so that if you were not qualified to be there, you will not be able to come there. It must also be in a well-lit, it must be well-lit. Apart from that, it must also be approved by the district police commander.
Okay.
So most of the places we use in 2020, we are not using them. And we've made it clear, once the media will be there, those who will not have access should be able to monitor the reporting from the media. But apart from that, each party, presidential candidate will have 2 representatives at the collation center. That's the constituency. Parliamentary candidates will also have 2 representatives. And if you are a candidate, as a candidate and your spouse, you are also allowed. And if you are a candidate and you have maybe more than one spouse, all of them will be allowed. So with these measures in place, and the EC has also in this year, we've also appointed people, we call them constituency collation officers, to add another layer of integrity in the process. So we believe that because a chunk of the problems were coming from the collation centers, with what we have done so far, we are very confident that we are going to have a very, very peaceful...
By Kojo Asante's estimation, you are 90% ready.
And if, CDD...
And the police or the security is only 80% ready.
And I think, we in Ghana, when someone said we've gotten 80%, we know what it means in our country. And for him to give the Electoral Commission based on... And I think we've done a great job, largely because this is a very big country. It's not like a country like some of this... the Netherlands, from one city to within 2 ours is a big country.
Okay.
And so we've done quite a lot, so we are very upbeat about it.
So get ready for my next guest, the political representatives, Nana Hininto, Pesa White, Kojo Bochio, Kwame Nkrumah, and among others, joining us shortly. So don't go anywhere. Actually today, we will finish this show at 30 minutes after 12. We'll be right back.
We want to plead with you. We are overcommitted to make sure that at the end of the day, we will be given the pass mark again, this time higher than all what we have achieved with all the examples that we've cited. But we want you also to do your very best at the individual level, at the party level, and at any other stakeholder level, so that your contribution and my contribution put together will make us strong and continue to be the trailblazer for the rest of Africa and beyond. Don't let Ghana fade away.
Since the inception of the Fourth Republic, Ghana has seen considerable improvement in her electoral journey. The Electoral Commission, the political parties, the police service, and the media all improved their methods of operation in terms of capacity and delivery. There have been significant reforms in the election calendar and the general conduct of elections, which have enabled the organization of peaceful, transparent, and credible elections. It is indeed our collective duty as citizens of Ghana to ensure that our elections are conducted in a free, fair, and transparent environment. Excellencies, it is in furtherance of sustaining the peace of Ghana that the National Peace Council was established to facilitate and develop mechanisms for conflict prevention, management, resolution, and to build sustainable peace in the country.
And you heard the chairman of the National Peace Council. And I have questions coming for National Peace Council. For example, people are asking you, what have you said about the 8 who were killed and the several others who were injured in 2020? Have you been bothered to insist that there is at least a report to update the nation on what has happened? Okay? These are serious. And okay, I'll have to restrain myself from saying what I wanted to say. This show is brought to you by Bank of Africa, as strong as a group and close as a partner. MTN everywhere you go. Ashasi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 33 plus years. My Way Insurance, dial *165# on MTN to join My Way today. DBS Industries, roofing, Papa Fie, Flamingo Paints, simply superior. Syntex Tanks, it's strong, it's tough. And Activa International Insurance, our clients, our passion. My outfit, as always, is by Kunati Clothing. They say what you wear counts. You can find them at Adenta Shopping Center, Adenta Down. Call them 0244 676732. And they are doing a discount for you between 10 to 15% discount once you call them between now and Christmas. Thank you very much. Now, we will go to our next set of guests. But before that, let me share with you a few of the messages. This one from Mr. Redu. He says, how are we guaranteed that there will be no doomsday, knowing very well that the counting always goes into the night? Dr. Bosman is saying that the place must be well lit. If such a thing happens, what provision has been made by the EC to avoid trouble and disaster? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'll move on. I'll come back and read some of the others. This one from Anderson Jr., he says, Ghana is not at war. Based on past occurrences, there should be no armed military personnel anywhere near polling stations and collation centers. State military personnel all around the world are trained to protect and serve civilians. It's only in Ghana you find military leadership threatening to beat civilians. It is cowardice. Musa Abatua in Asawasi says, recent intelligence suggests that, I'm not going to read this, sorry. Recent intelligence, I will look at it later. Thank you. We have a number of you who have sent in messages. My producers are having difficulty because they have to kind of edit them somewhat. You know, because if you have a general attack on the EC, I'll not read it. Be specific about what you are not happy about with the EC, then we'll get answers from the EC sitting right here in the studio. So, now, let's, Dr. Professor White is right here. Mr. Bushu is right here. We also have Nana Hininto joining us via Zoom, as well as Kofi Koranting. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, answer the question from Mr. Redu. You say you want a place that is well lit for the coalition. When there's light out, what will happen?
We've made provision for standby generators for all the coalition centers, the constituency, the regional, as well as the national. So for that one, we've taken that into consideration. So we don't expect that there's going to be any major challenges. And at the polling stations too, because the counting can as well also go late into the night, we have a provision there to ensure that once they finish the voting, the counting can take place. And usually at most of the polling stations, within a maximum of 3 hours, they should be able to finish with the counting. But we've made provision for a lightning system for the counting at the polling station. So for polling station, constituency coalition, regional coalition, we are well set for that.
All right. Professor White, what are the issues that come up to you from where you sit? And I was telling my audience that we haven't seen you on television or even on radio for a very long time. Yeah. The last time I saw you on the screens, you were at Circle together with other, professors. That's right. You were distributing leaflets. That's right. Yeah. That's recently.
Around atomic overhead.
Okay.
Which looks similar to Circle.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah. Okay. So what have you flagged?
So quite a number of things. Thank you very much.
Apart from the shortfall in Ballot and the seal that was broken, which has been fixed.
Yes. Thank you very much, Samson, and good morning to your viewers and listeners. Great to be here. Even before I highlight some of the issues that I'm concerned about, I think in the Bossman's response to your question about the lightning system,
right?
He was quite specific in saying that at the regional level, they've done provisions by way of generators, right? Constituency level, they've done the same thing. And then he provided a privileged information which says at the branch level, they've made a provision of what exactly?
We have some lights we use in our work. And for those ones, we've made accommodation for every polling station. Okay. For those ones, it's part of the EC's process. So when we talk about election materials, we have what we call sensitive. The sensitives are the ballot papers, the biometric verification device, but we have non-sensitive. There are other materials which we send to each of the polling.
So you have battery-propelled lights.
Battery-propelled lights, okay. All those ones are there.
All right.
And we have them in abundance for every polling station.
Okay. All right.
So thank you very much. One of the things that is of concern to me immediately is the preparedness of the EC itself to conduct the election in the next couple of days. And I say so because as we speak, the EC has not made public the individuals that they have recruited to manage the election at the various polling stations across this country. And often what I have discovered about this EC, this particular EC, or the officers currently managing the EC, is that they try to hide explanations behind there is no law compelling us, or the law doesn't say this. But there are some things that, excuse me to say, are just commonsensical. One would have expected that an institution that prides itself or claims that one of its values is transparency, you don't wait to be pushed in order to provide information. In fact, you provide information ahead and allow people to look at the information and draw your attention to things that they feel might need some clarification. We have 7 or 6 days to election, if I'm not mistaken, and the political parties clearly have no sense of the individuals. And this is important because there are suspicions that some individuals who are holding executive position in some of the political parties, particularly in the MPP, may have been recruited to serve as the individuals who may either be issuing ballots or be doing the inking or maybe checking the names in the register and so on and so forth. And it is important, particularly in the interest of free and fair elections, that these things are cleared up if there are any things of that nature. And in fact, it is in the interest of the EC that these things are done much better to enhance its image. But as we speak, we haven't had that done. Then the other issue is we need to also know, we heard that election materials have been dispatched. We need to know and be clear on particularly the equipments that are going to be used during the election, the biometric devices, how many are expected in each branch or each polling station in the country, how many have been dispatched and have all been dispatched, are they working well, are there some things that we should worry about? I ask this because I think in the next couple of days, a lot more of this will come up. As we speak, I know for Asawase, for instance, where they have 215 polling stations, 215 polling stations. And if each polling station is expected to have 2 of the BVDs, then they were expected to have 430 BVDs. My understanding is that only 401 has been delivered. And the explanation of the EC is that they will manage. Now, that raises for me a concern. They will manage simply means that when a BVD is broken down in one branch, they may probably run and go look for an extra from another branch. All these things delay, the process. And by so doing, we will keep people in the queue for a long time and may even disenfranchise people because some people may just come in and they just walk away. But also, I want my colleague here, when I refer to him as a colleague is because we've been classmates in Legon from first degree all the way up. So, and we've been teaching together in Legon also, except that he has, in his role in the EC, become something else. So I decided to kind of stay away from him completely. Yes, because I think if he was also our classmate. So it's our year group that is on the show today. That's right. Now, I want Bosman to provide some clarity. Am I? Yeah, go on. I want Bosman to provide some clarity on the officers who are working for the EC on the election day, right? My understanding is that the EC is saying that a lot of them will not be able to vote. The individuals who have been recruited to manage the elections will not be able to vote. And the reason is that many of them will be deployed to places where they do not have their votes. And my understanding again is that when they complain, they were told by the EC that they have to choose between working for the EC or basically choosing to go and cast their votes. And I was told that Bosman in particular said that the EC is learning from his mistake and these things may not happen again in the future. If the EC is quite forward-looking and really wants to make sure that it does its work by being the institution that creates the enabling environment for all eligible voters to vote, then it stands to reason that even for the people, particularly for the people managing the election, there is no reason why, by working for the EC, they should be disenfranchised. And so I will be happy if he provides some clarification on that. You're talking about EC's officers. You know the EC has permanent staff and then temporary staff. Right. In times like this, they recruit temporary staff. The temporary staff they have recruited, which is about 210,000 across the country, teachers, nurses, and all kinds of people, many of them are going to be posted to so many different places across the country to work. And my understanding currently is that by virtue of the fact that the EC, in fact, even as at yesterday's IPAC meeting, is claiming that they are now training them, the EC is not even sure where they are sending these individuals yet. And the possibility is that many of them would not be sent to where they already have their votes. If that happens, potentially... So if they had been recruited early enough, there would have been an arrangement for them to transfer their votes. Or they would have been part of the special voting list. Okay. And that hasn't happened. And if we are talking about 210 potential individuals that are potentially being disenfranchised, then we have a big problem, in my view, because did you say 210? 210,000, sorry, 210,000. Yes. Well, first of all, let me know the veracity of that issue, and then we can proceed, if you don't mind. Yeah.
You want me to come in?
Yes.
I think the first, you mentioned that we've not given the names of the officials we are going to use for the elections to the party. We've done that. And this is not a national thing. We do it at the constituency level. I know we did it. By law, we are supposed to do it 10 days. It should be at least 10 days before. And the deadline was supposed to be Wednesday. So we did that. But what normally happens is that the people you have recruited, not all of them will show up for your training. Because not all of them will show up, what we give to the parties, when we finish the training, we do update. So yesterday at IPAC, we mentioned to the parties that once we conclude the training, we are going to update the list. So certainly you realize that for someone who has indicated, I will be the presiding officer, the training day, the person will not come. And there are even instances where the person has gone through the training the day before the election. The person will give you a notice.
So when you gave the list of presiding officers to the political parties, and you gave them a 10-day ultimatum, what were they supposed to do? The 10 days ended Wednesday. What were they supposed to do? To raise objections? Or
raise objections, and it's part of the process to raise objections. If they have evidence that a particular person belongs to a particular party or is well known as an operative of a party. And we did the same for the returning officers. So we had both parties, especially the petition.
So do you know if they have raised any concerns?
So far, nothing has come to our attention.
Okay.
Or usually when they do, our district officers will alert us.
All right.
And we will quickly set up a committee to deal with that.
Okay.
I think Professor also mentioned
potential of disenfranchising.
I think that one. What usually happens is that, the time of the recruitment, not all of them, the time of doing the special voting, not all of them had been recruited, but a number of them at the time had been recruited. So those people took part in the special voting. The special voting is for media, security personnel, and election officials. When you look at the numbers, I believe election officials, out of the 131,478, I believe election officials will be more, will probably constitute a majority of that number. But still, with the 210, that means we still have a significant number outstanding. The instructions we give to our district officers is that as much as possible, ensure that these are people, because usually the people who work for us as temporary officials, about 99.9% of the time, they are registered voters in those same constituencies.
Right.
In 2020, we did the same, so we do instruct them as much as possible. We are the election management body. It shouldn't be said of us that we are taking any action to disenfranchise anyone. So usually when you even come for interview, and we've noticed that, you are a registered voter in the Ashanti region, but you want to work in Greater Accra, we say no. Well, we don't want to be part of your decision not to vote.
So you are saying that the potential that it doesn't exist, that they will be disenfranchised?
I was making the point that we tell the district officers, make sure you assign them to places where they can also vote. But there could be instances where somebody who votes at Kukumlemle, then the person is working at, let's say, Adenta. Those ones can happen. But what we've told them is as much as possible, ensure that, because usually around 12 o'clock, 1 p.m. thereabout, the process, the places become so quiet.
Thank you.
I think there was a question about BVD. I think for the BVD question, for every polling station, we give them 2 BVDs. For every polling station, we give them 2. And the example you gave that in Aswansi, instead of 423,
430.
30, they had 401. What normally happens at times is that, Samson, in some of our polling stations, that we call some of our polling stations split centers. This year, we are using the threshold, the maximum threshold for each polling station is 700. So if you had a polling station that was 800, automatically it will be divided into 2. So it will become Joy FM A and Joy FM B. And we are supposed to have 2 verification devices for each of them.
Right.
So instead of Joy FM becoming only getting 2, now that it's become A and B, then it's become 2 for A, 2 for B. So in worst case scenarios, at times what we do is that when we will not be able to cover all the polling stations, then what we say is that for A and B, you can even have 1 as backup. By about 98% of the time, all the polling stations will have 2. Okay. And don't forget that in 2020, although we had 2 per polling station, in all the polling stations, they didn't even use the second one. So as long as you have the one, and each device can stand for about 14 hours once we charge it properly. So, Professor, that one should not be a cause for concern.
Okay, so hold on, and I want Professor White to hold on for me. Let me go to Nana Oninto. Briefly, I want you guys to raise any issues that you may have, and then you have the opportunity to raise your substantive concerns and express them in the manner you deem fit. So, Nana Oninto, thank you very much for joining us. He is Director of Elections, Planning and Coordination for the Movement for Change, Alan Chermantin's group. Any issues you have for the Electoral Commission? Hello, Nana Oninto. Okay, maybe I'll try Evans Nemako, Director of Research and Elections of the NPP. Evans, if you have any issues, raise them with Dr. Bosman right now.
Samson, good morning to you and to panelists at the studio and to viewers across the world. Then for us as New Patriotic Party, we go by our word, we go by the terms of engagement to ensure that we have peaceful elections come December 7, 2024. It is important to mention that raising issues, allegations with that basis should not be the order of the day. I heard my friend Pesa saying that some of the ad hoc staff of the EC are MPP officials. Yet you don't have any basis, any evidence to support the issue you are raising. It is important that the EC will furnish parties with a list of ad hoc staff and all those involved in the processes. Because parties will have to be given a study and raise concerns if they have to. Something in 2020 elections, in 2 polling stations, one in Boko Central, the other in Ewutu Senior East. He took a bold ad hoc staff of YEC to tore off Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who was #1 on the ballot, a certain precedent. In that, the New Patriotic Party did not cause servants to break loose. We made presentation to the EC about the action of that official. The EC only issued statements that all ballots should have full complement of all candidates. It is important that if you are part of this exercise, you should make statements that will enhance peace and unity, rather than allegation without basis. And it is becoming one too many of the NDC. At the Peace Pact meeting, the flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, called on the media, the security, political parties and its leadership, the Electoral Commission and voters as well, to exercise constraint and respect the rules of the game. And so for us as New Patriotic Party, we are ready that there must be peace before, during, and after these elections, and that Ghana must come out victorious. If you follow this whole exercise, and not the first time, and you've been part of discussions at IPAC and other fora, there are certain questions you will not ask. There are certain issues you will not raise. Because I heard Dr. Bosman, when this printing exercise began, all parties had agents in all these printing houses. There were times that some printing houses had to offload their quantum. For instance, Checkpoint was printing Central Region Presidential and Parliamentary. It was moved to back press. At a point, Fonstad had to move their quantum to other printing houses, at commercials and back press. And parties have been following. The issue that has come up with respect to shortfalls of ballots, you were giving ballot statistics and you've been following. If you look at the numbers involved and the percentage that the EC added to the registered voters to mark up a certain number of ballot papers per polling station, and that shortfalls, you not raise any issue. Because what had been printed, even if there was no that 2% increment, you are still going to have enough ballot to cover all people who are registered to vote. Hardly will you go to elections and have 100% turnout. But in order that a possibility of sports ballots and that stuff, you make some arrangement. Elsewhere, additional ballots are not added. And so, please, for us as New Patriotic Party, we are certain that our presidential candidate has made lots of good case for himself, for good people of Ghana to vote for him. You will not do anything to undermine our democracy. You rather urge all stakeholders to respect the rules of the game. The CI 127 is clear. When EC does appointment of ad hoc staff, what he must do to political parties. What parties must do, an issue of a bag containing ballot papers being transported. If you follow it and you have your seals on them, and even a seal is broken, you will check that particular bag. But to the extent that you will not accept it and you raise issue, and then it turns out that all those issues you've raised did not have basis, then what do you seek to serve? Something we were here, NDC raised serious issues about the register, even at the provisional level stage. For that basis, it turned out not to be the case. And so please, we only called on our brothers in this game that please, as much as possible, let's exercise some constraint, even where we have issues. Because when our presidential candidate was torn off the ballot, we didn't fight. We made our case to the EC. We've had a situation where leadership, something in 2020 elections, the NDC members of parliament decided to defy the orders of the police and walk straight to the Electoral Commission. What was the issue? That they've won the elections. The leadership of NDC told their supporters that they've won the elections. They've won these numbers of seats in parliament.
So can we stay here and meet the purpose for which we are doing this? So far, you are saying you don't have any issues as a NPP going into the elections. As far as you can see, all is ready and no complaints ahead of Monday, the special voting, and Saturday, the general elections, right?
I'm not saying we don't have any concerns. Yesterday when we met at IPAC, we raised issue of the list of those who have been employed or engaged by the EC. The answer is that it's been given to parties at the constituency level. But if you look at the CI 127, it's not only the party, it also says that candidates, and the EC gave us the assurance that 1st of December, we are going to have the document. So I'm waiting to go to EC tomorrow to get a copy of the list of those who have been assigned or will be assigned on December 7th for that exercise. So we'll go by their words and make sure that that is done. Our major concern has been the posture of NDC to the extent that they raise allegation without basis.
Evans, so we have limited time to which we are doing the discussion. If you focus too much on the NDC, you will not raise your own issues. Yeah. Now, let me hold on there. Let me come to let me talk to Nana Hininto. I suppose he's ready now. Hello, Nana Hininto. Hello, Nana Hininto. Please unmute your mic.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Great, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Right.
Sorry, I think there was a bit of a hiccup here.
If you were to bring any issues to the attention of the EC, what would they be, or to all of us in the public?
Thank you very much, Samson, for the opportunity, and warm greetings to all of our viewers this morning. I've been following the discussion, and there are one or two issues that we have persistently raised. We have continuously been giving the assurance, and the assurances have been, just what it is, the statement of assurance. But when you put the background, the practical issues on the ground against the assurances, then we seem to still have some concern. And it has more to do with security and how security officials operate on the day of election. The specific concern that we have raised over and over again is that in spite of the fact that you have the Inspector General of Police's Election Security Task Force, the reality has been that on election day, executive branch officials from the executive branch of government, regional ministers, DCs, even ministers, physically tend to obstruct the operation and the authority of the Election Security Task Force personnel on the ground. I mean, you would find a minister, regional minister, telling a security official that you work under me. We've raised this issue. But we also know that in reality, when a police officer, a security personnel, meets such a powerful person in authority, really, really difficult. Beyond the assurances, we haven't had any concrete arrangement put in place that says that regional ministers, DCEs, ministers, executive branch officials will be stopped or restricted ABC. Electoral Commission, the Security Task Force spoke about they not being allowed to approach the elections area with their armed security and all of that. But they themselves are the issue, not even their security, their armed or unarmed security. They themselves are the issue. So that one, I don't think, even though we have received some assurances, we have practical measures in place to confirm those assurances now.
So this issue you raise is beyond the Electoral Commission?
Well, of course, the task force works very closely with the Electoral Commission, and the first time I raised this issue was at the National Election Security Task Force meeting, at which the Electoral Commission was present. In fact, at that meeting, I did raise two main issues about misinformation and disinformation. Unfortunately, when I raised the issue of disinformation and misinformation, the Electoral Commission official there discounted it. And I insisted until the police picked it up. And that was the reason someone has been arrested for propagating publicly that elections were going to be held on 2 different days. So it's an issue between both, well, with a lot more emphasis on the security personnel, but also working directly with the Electoral Commission. That has been it. Now, the current issue that we have a little problem with is the faulty ballot papers that Electoral Commission informed us at some of the printing houses, Axe Commercial, InnoLink checkpoint, and they gave us a date, which was today at 10 a.m., that they were going to be destroyed in the presence of all agents. Our agents arrived at InnoLink this morning at 8:30. The event was supposed to be at 10, and the Electoral Commission says it was destroyed yesterday. And the written notice they sent us was Saturday, 30th November, which is today. So some of these little things, sometimes it really may not itself represent a very big issue. But you must find that since there is this general sense of a bit of suspicion and mistrust, some of these little things may feed into that mistrust.
Let me get Bossman on this specifically, because that's
we
wrong.
Can clear it right now.
That's not right. That you asked them to come today at a particular time, and you are now informing them that the thing was done yesterday.
Yesterday, yes, and they don't like it. That's what our agents reported today.
You need to check with your team. Okay, so can you check whilst we are here?
Yes, I can do. So you continue with.
Okay, so Nana, you hear him. He says he's going to check with their team because this is news to him.
Oh, I'm surprised because people are, well, they went there this morning, and to ensure that they were there on time, the exercise was scheduled to take place at 10 a.m. today. They got there at about 8:30. You know, so that's it.
Okay, but you have the district and municipal security being headed by the political, appointees.
Exactly.
So
that is where the issue comes.
How do you go around that?
Well, the Inspector General of Police responded by saying that this is a special task force which is totally and absolutely in charge of the security, its command, and its operation, and the orders right down to the polling station on election day. Okay. And that indeed this has nothing to do with the security authority of the regional minister at the RegSec level, and it has nothing to do with the authority of the district chief executive at the district level.
Okay.
But That's why I'm saying that we don't have any real practical measures put in place to assure us that the presence and the use of the regional minister's power, the DC's power, will not be affected, because indeed it has been over and over on election days. So we don't know how exactly, with beyond the verbal assurances, we don't know how that is going to be dealt with. And something, this is very important, because
Nito, just hold on a second for me, Dr. Bosman. Yes. So he's speaking from experience. This is a man who has enormous experience. Don't you think there's a challenge there, and what could be done, even though this may be beyond you?
In terms of the security?
Yes.
Well, we've been practicing this for years, and we've always known that these political appointees are the heads of the...
And they have caused problems, because they are the heads of the various security, for the localities.
Now, when it comes to the elections, we have the Election Security Task Force.
Right.
And when the Election Security Task Force is activated, they are in charge of election security nationwide. So if you are the regional minister, you are not the one in charge of.
If you are the DC, if you are the MC,
you are not the one in charge of.
No one should take any instructions from you.
What per our understanding is the Election Security Task Force, headed by the IGP with other service commanders. So for elections purposes, it's not the job of the district security chief, who happens to be a politician. We know some DCs are even they are candidates for the election. So,
that's right.
So this one is, and I know Nana has been in the business.
Kwame, do you have this assurance going into the elections that these, political actors will not be issuing instructions left, right, center? It's happened and it's caused trouble.
Yeah. Thank you, Samson, and warm wishes to your viewers and our flag bearer, Nana Kosia from Pomasapon Kumankoma. I was at a briefing with the IGP at the National Election Security Task Force briefing, and I would say that we don't have anything to worry about. The political parties who were present were briefed in camera. It is not all the details I can release, but we are in safe hands. The IGP and his group will be in charge of the election. There is no way that we'll have any local authorities or any political appointees trying to take over the activities. And to add, one fortunate thing about where I stand as a politician is that in 2004, I was posted to the District Electoral Commission office in Jirapa-Lambusie, and it was an election year. So I managed to get real work experience of how the Electoral Commission works in an election year. And these things that are happening, as much as it may raise concerns to some people, I think they have been resolved to a large extent, and we don't have much to worry about. The main stakeholders, the EC, the police, the political parties, they are all doing their bit. At this point, I think that the only point of concern that I have with the EC is under the Public Elections Regulations 2020, CI 127. If you go to section 6, subsection B, which says furnish a copy of the published names and pictures of the presiding officers to a political party and any candidate contesting the election. Indeed, they've given copies to the constituency branches, but this is something where it is even stated that a registered political party or even just a person qualified to vote may raise an objection. So this list is not for only consumption by the political parties at the constituency level. The candidates, as in the parliamentary aspirants, the presidential candidates, are supposed to have copies.
Read the rule again.
It's 19(6)(b). The commission shall publish at the district office.
So that's what I'm looking at. Yes. Publication.
It has to be published.
It's not handing to the parties.
Exactly. If that is under A, but in B, they also have to give the parties copies. and it's been confirmed that B has been done. But if A has not been done, then A has to be done as soon as possible. Because the political parties, we are not the only stakeholders. I would say that the main stakeholders in this election are the 19 million voters, the ordinary man on the street. He has a right to know what is happening. Because when it comes to the suspicions around the EC, it is not limited to the EC alone. The suspicions go over into the political parties as well. The EC is a neutral arbiter. The problems come only when people have this perception.
Dr. Bosman, on this particular issue, we know about the Dwaboso constituency where the NDC has raised issues with some of the people, and they've brought the evidence to the public.
That's right.
We can see the evidence.
We brought the evidence.
Yes, it looks impregnable.
Yes.
Okay.
That the people they have listed, they show you their details, their biometrics, so to speak, and they are MPP people, and they are supposed to be
executives.
MPP executives.
Of the MPP.
Yes, MPP executives who have been selected as EC polling officers. I'm sure this has been brought to you. What have you done concretely?
To be frank, you are the first person mentioning it. Maybe because of our work, but let's be very frank. What we have said is that anywhere where you have an issue, as you read, we've given those details to the parties. So the onus is on the party to write to the EC. And this evidence you are giving and you are saying very, very impregnable, once the EC sees that we take action, then we'll quickly inform our officer, a committee, get the information, then we replace them. So this return of, when we did the recruitment for return officers, well, that one very, very critical. I remember in one of the constituencies in Ahafo, there was a certain gentleman NDC petitioned against, and MPP also petitioned against the same person. We had a similar incident in the Savannah region. We had a committee looking into it. Then the conclusion was that all those two people should be expelled. And we did that. So for this one, it's part of the work. And it's not only limited to NDC petitioning. MPP, in 2020, I remember they petitioned some people who were campaigning for NDC, who had also been recruited by the EC as officials. We removed them. NDC also did the same in 2020. So this one is just, that's the nature of the business. So once this evidence comes to us, we will not hesitate. And considering the fact that we only have about 6-7 days to the election, we will act quickly so that the officer can have enough time to replace them.
Okay.
And I've gotten information from the...
In that list, for example, we see they have picked up Danso Aaron.
That's right.
These are card-bearing MPP people. Danso Aaron, Odro Williams, Asamoah Samson, Yeboah Samuel, Amwa Eric, Amwa David, Mensah John, Sebe, Ofori Frederick. You are seeing some of them. They've actually gone to show them in MPP paraphernalia.
Some of them had gone ahead to endorse
and they are in
parliamentary candidates.
They are on campaigns.
This is Gaboso.
Yes. Eva Eduhene, Owusu, Anastasia, and they are showing you pictures of these people with MPP, and the association appears so evident. Edu Evelyn, Ahmed Kwabna Abbas, you have Mensah Jessica, you have Joseph Inkwa, and Amo Fache Stephen, as well as Adair Robert, Opoku Frimpong Rexford, Edu Hayford, and Dominic Duku Ampim, Kingsley Kofi, among others.
This one, once the evidence is
so just a
so simple.
That, right. If you don't mind.
Right.
See, so when I spoke earlier and I was a bit nebulous, Evans Dimako came in asking for evidence. This is the evidence.
Right.
Dwaboso is just one.
We take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, it's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And as you can see, we are doing an extended session because it's a special that we are doing. Next week, by this time, we would have done from dawn. And we'll do until the next day, as we always do. This show is brought to you by Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN everywhere you go. Chelsea University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 33 plus years. My Way Insurance, dial *165# on MTN to join My Way today. DBS Industries, roofing, Papa Fie, Flamingo Paints, Simply Superior, Syntex Tanks is strong, it's tough, and Activa International Insurance, our clients, our passion. My outfit, as always, by Konati Clothing, 0244 676732, and they're doing a discount offer, 10 to 15% between now and Christmas. So place your orders. And later on, you will have your Joy Sports link. We will bring back the conversation with the International Sports Consultant and Chief Operating Officer at AFCON 2008, Mr. Magnus Rest Dankwa. Join Joy Sports Link Conversations and Mr. Magnus Dankwa as they delve into laws in the Sports Act, the administrative framework, infrastructure, and opportunities. The Joy Sports Link with Nathaniel Atto comes to you from midday. Thank you for staying with us. Now, you wanted to give a response to Nana Oheninto, even though he said this was not as big an issue, but it is helpful to build trust. So what happened that you sent them a letter that an activity that was supposed to be done, the burning of certain ballots to be done today at 10, there are people get there and they are told that it was burnt yesterday or destroyed yesterday?
We wrote a letter to them, not only for one particular printing house, I think about 7 of them. But in this particular printing house Nana was referring to, my understanding was that they had only very, very few, about a booklet or so. So the agents of the parties who were present yesterday took a decision that to avoid coming back to that same place, they should go ahead and shred them. And they actually shredded them. And there is a certificate to that effect. So that certificate will be shared with all the political parties as well as the independent candidates.
But your letter said they should come today.
Today for all the printing houses. But as I said, some of the agents who were there yesterday working in that particular place took that decision. So after this particular program, we will investigate and get to the bottom of it. But the most important thing is that
so did you inform people like Alan's group about what had happened?
No, the Alan's group, there are many people who have been representing them. So I need to check with my team who they actually informed.
Okay.
Because apart from Nana, I'm very familiar with the Nana Sapon. He normally comes to the meetings. And so it's possible he was contacted.
But just a second. Nana Oninto, what do you say to that? Nana Oninto. Yes, Professor White.
Yes, so I was going to say that, you see, these things may look little, minute, and small, but all of them put together, creates
Samson, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Incidentally, it was Nana Sapon who actually briefed me on this matter, because he and others do the monitoring and supervision of our teams at the various printing houses. So this is a report coming from Nana Sapon.
Yeah, so what you have been told, what do you say about it? That yesterday you had a group of the representatives at the place, and they decided that it was better to do the shredding yesterday so that they don't return to that place today. That's how come your representative got there today and it's already been done.
Yeah, but the point is, as I said, I don't want to make a meal out of this, but some of these little things can, send the wrong signals. But we have agents at all the printing houses. So I'm just wondering how come it happened at the time that our agents at InnoLink Press were not there. But I don't want to push it too much.
Okay.
I think he has explained a few ballot booklets involved, so fine. But that's what happened. Of course, we are present today for the rest of the exercise, and I hope it will go according to the directives and notice that they themselves have given. Actually, what happens is that sometimes we complain a lot about the Electoral Commission, the time they give for us to even attend meetings. The notices have been so short, that's okay, we are all in an emergency. But sometimes we will go for the meetings and we'll say there 2-3 hours. In some cases, after 2-3 hours, the meeting will not happen, and the person knows. We've complained about that. But those are not the issues that we really wanted to talk about. Samson, if you give me the opportunity, I wanted to quickly refer to one issue regarding the violence-free, peaceful elections from the perspective that Professor Anyenini, from Professor Anyenini had raised it. He had put a lot of confidence in the peaceful character or demeanor of
Did we lose Anahini into? We'll try and re-establish contact with him, but Professor White, we've not forgotten that you were actually making a comment, and you two were already speaking. You were commenting on the Dwaboso situation. Right. But Kofi Koranteng, what are the things on the top of your mind this morning as you prepare for Monday's elections and also on Saturday as a presidential candidate?
Good morning, Samson, and to all our viewers and to panelists at the studio. I just want to check mic check. Can you hear me well?
Clearly, sir.
Excellent. Samson, I'm disappointed. And I am disappointed because, it's tradition to be polite. It's tradition to come here and speak with humility and be understanding and considerate. But this is exactly what has put us into this mess. The Electoral Commissioner is so unprofessional. It's ridiculous. If they work for me, I'll fire all of them. And let me tell you why. And when I speak, people cringe, but this is why we are in this mess. Samson, we have been at this thing for more than 32 years. We can't seem to figure it out. We always wait till at the dawn, at the eve of an election, and then we come here and we mess things up, and we want people to accept that, oh, you know what, there are so many irregularities that blows my mind.
Yes,
do you
point us to some of them. Point us to some of them.
Okay, so a couple of things. The times that they set for meetings, they're never on time. It bothers me. You go in there, they change an agenda. They tell you show up for a 2 o'clock meeting. They don't start a meeting till maybe 6 or 8. And then they come and they feed you snacks. You see, you know what bothers me? It bothers me because there is no sense of efficiency. And we think it's okay because, at some point we will get it done. We have time in, time out where ballots are, faulty ballots come up. Why did we get faulty ballots in the first place? Nobody asked that question. Yet they're supposed to, if it's faulty ballot, then I guess we're going to destroy it. Who pays for that? The taxpayer. The time spent to go burn or destroy the ballot, it's a concern to me because this is how we waste money. And, we don't seem to take this seriously, and it bothers me. You cannot run a country like it's, a cocontecho bar. You can't. And this is what I feel when you get Dr. Bossman sit here and make excuses for everything. Oh, I'm going to check with this. No, there's supposed to be clarity. There's supposed to be specificity. At this many decades that he's been at the Electoral Commissioner, he shouldn't be coming here to tell us, this is how we always do it. But, I'll call my people and check. Oh, Nananto is complaining about irregularity. But you have one contact person for the party, for the political entity. Your responsibility is to communicate to that contact. You cannot prove to us that you communicated to that contact. Oh, sometimes we always deal with this person. No, that's not good enough. You see, Samson, let me tell you something. When you ignore the science, which is SIGNS, you don't attain the necessary science, which is SCIENCS. This is exactly what is happening. We have ignored the science, so we just do things. And it's costing us money. It's an incredible waste of time. What is this about?
What are you concerned about for Monday, the special voting, and or for Saturday, the general election?
Samson, you see, one of the problems is we always isolate stuff. We have an underlying problem. You cannot do it by forcing me into isolation to pick something. The whole platform, the whole foundation of the Electoral Commission needs changing. Listen, they are an F, a big F for me. From the kind of securities background that I have worked in for 24 years, this is an F for performance. They're not efficient, they're not effective, they keep making mistakes. Samson, what I'm saying, the concern is one.
The mistakes they have made, the mistake they have made that have been pointed to them or they detected themselves, they have corrected them. As we speak.
Obviously they haven't, because these are mistakes that happened the last election cycle. It's happened again this cycle. So they haven't. See, Samson, let me tell you something. For an operation like an electoral commissioner coming into an election, there's something called practice, drill, and rehearse. You have to practice in anticipation. You have to drill. You have to know every mistake that could possibly happen and fix it before it happens. You cannot go into an election and dabble it over as the problems come. That means you are not prepared. This is a big election, just as much as every election is.
They tell us about trainings that they have been holding, and I don't think at those trainings they go for party. They go to do the drill. They go to do the rehearsals that you are talking about.
Absolutely not, Samson, because if they were, we would not have these irregularities happen, okay? I'll give you an example. Samson, Dr. Bosman is talking about, if lights go off, we have standby generators. Waste of money. It just talks about how incompetent they are. Because let me tell you, a ballot should be Q-coded or bar-coded. You can use a scanner on a phone to authenticate a ballot. So even if there's no light, if you have a charge on your phone and you authenticate a ballot and you put it in a ballot box, the program on your phone will stop any duplication that could happen. That's not the system that we have. Another thing. There are over 41,000 polling stations, Samson. They expect the independent candidates and all the smaller political parties to bring their own policing structure, which in itself is an admission that they don't know what they're doing. Because if you know what you're doing and it's airtight, you would not be asking political entities to come and supervise what happens at a polling station. It's never done. Number three.
I thought that was for openness. That was for transparency, without which there will be
regardless
problems.
of what it is, Samson. Samson, please stop interrupting me, because listen, the point is the Electoral Commission has not done its job. It's an F for fail. And this is why we keep sitting here wasting time.
My difficulty also with you is that you have the Electoral Commission, key officials sitting here, and you have the opportunity to direct specific issues, and you say you don't want isolations. How can we continue to dabble in generalities?
Samson, the Electoral Commissioner does not sit down to plan. If I were to direct specific, it would take us all day. Okay, they're totally not professional. Now, let me tell you one big thing, and then maybe we can munch on that. The campaign financing and the ability for every candidate to disclose their assets. Why is it that the Electoral Commission ignores that? I don't know of any one candidate who have disclosed their assets before or after. let Dr. Bossman answer that. Why is it that it's been ignored? Is it not in the Constitution?
Okay. It's actually in the 2000 Political Parties Act, Political Parties Law. And I'm equally surprised, just like you, that the law is very clear that the sources of funding, and they, as the Electoral Commission, every 6 months or so, before and after elections, they are supposed to have an audit and show to us. But they fail all the time to do that. But tonight, this afternoon, we are talking about Monday and Saturday. And we cannot be talking about this for now. I think we can deal with those later.
I need to respond briefly.
Yes, quickly.
I think Mr. Kranchen lacks understanding about processes. I don't think he even understands how printing works. To attribute the 40 ballot papers to incompetence of the EC, you don't understand.
It's your job. No, if you say he lacks understanding of processes, that's not correct.
You understand the process of the printing. Ask people who are in the printing business. If you have been told to print, let's say, 1,000 copies of something, definitely there will be waste. What is being destroyed, they are the excess papers that were associated with the printing. So when you sit on national TV as somebody who wants to become a candidate for president,
he doesn't want to become a candidate. He's a candidate
for president.
Correct.
Then secondly, you are saying that when the law has provided that candidates are allowed to have agents at the polling stations, then you are saying that the Electoral Commission must do what? But I think he lacks a primary understanding of.
See, this is exactly the talk.
Let's
listen, Samson. This is exactly the talk that really nauseates me, because he doesn't understand that it's his responsibility to the people who have employed him to make sure that we don't have these irregularities. Samson, if everything were done correctly, even to substandard levels, you will not be asking agents of political parties to show up at your locations
but Kofi, you are referring to something as an irregularity, and the thing is no irregularity. If there's printing and there's excess, you can't call that an irregularity.
Samson, oh gosh, Samson, when you work at a printer, which I have, there are definitely going to be excesses. But why should that be a challenge, or why should that even cause you to cause somebody to come and supervise? The mere fact that you understand and accept that people should come and supervise the excesses being destroyed, it's an admittance, because it's standard operation anyway at any printing center.
Okay, thank you. Your views are duly acknowledged. So this is what I'm going to do. We have like 5 minutes of the time to spend. So let me see what you do within 2 minutes, and Professor White will do the final 3 minutes that's left.
Okay, I would say that these issues that have been pointed out from the briefing from our very able IPAC members and from my own experience as having worked at the Electoral Commission as a national service personnel in an election year, 2004. Most of these issues are administrative, as in they have to do with publishing of lists of polling officials, timing of meetings. Of course, I have also had my fair share of going for meetings starting late, but that one is not restricted to the EC. I'm not saying that.
Look, I want us to focus on Monday and Saturday.
So for Monday and Saturday, I would say that all in all, looking at what we have here, restricting polling stations to 750 people maximum, even dividing them in case of more than the number, because we now have 40,976 polling stations. It used to be less. Looking at 14 hours battery capacity BVD with extra BVDs, and all these things put together, I think that the Electoral Commission are ready for this election.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, I think we still have a very long way to go. My wish is that both Monday and Saturday will be much better, will be improved compared to previous experiences, and that all the concerns that Ghanaians have will be resolved before the election. And I say so also with the background of knowing what happened in Ayawaso, what happened in Ijisu, the death of 8 people in the last election, and the very posture of the Electoral Commission and its officials, very condescending, a posture of self-righteousness, a posture of self-praise, not willing to take not willing to even apologize. I mean, the Electoral Commission official had described the NDC, for instance, as a, what do you call it, as a threat to our democracy. How can a referee be tagging one of the players?
That's untrue.
It's not untrue. You said that.
That's
you should be able to admit. This is an opportunity for you to basically look people in the camera and apologize.
And I'm looking people in the, and I'm saying, I'm informing them. The tape
I heard you said it on one of the...
Professor, go and get the tape.
I'm saying that you said so, and it has been reported widely, and you have never disputed it.
Oh, I've always disputed it.
Can you wait for your turn so that you can rebut? Is that okay?
It's interesting. I'm listening. I'm watching friends.
Yes,
friends who are not just friends because they were both in academia before Dr. Bosman left. Interesting. Go ahead and finish your point.
So what I want to tell Bosman and Jane Mensah and all the folks out there is that this year's election, as for us in the NDC, we intend to be very peaceful. But we will take no nonsense whatsoever. We have learned from Ayawaso, we have learned from the 2020 elections. Just like President Mahama took the step to go to the Peace Pact and sign this thing, we intend to be peaceful. But that should not be misconstrued to mean that any NDC member will be slapped and will sit down and watch and clap or go home. If any NDC member is slapped at any police station, we will make sure that the lawful thing is done. That is to say that we will defend the Constitution. And if defending the Constitution means that one slap will come with 2 slaps to whoever slapped the person, we will do that.
Thank you.
And make sure that we have
Thank you. As far as you are concerned, we are ready for Monday. We are ready for Saturday.
For Monday, and we are calling on Ghanaians to come out there in their numbers to exercise the franchise.
Thank you very much. Evans Nemako, my apologies to you because he wanted to actually give reaction. Unfortunately, this is all time will allow us. I'm Samson Lardy Anyenini, and you have been listening to my guest, Dr. Bosman Asare, Kwame Bochio, Professor Pesa White, Kofi. Yes, he's a lawyer, of course. Kofi, he's more than a lawyer. Kofi Karanting, independent presidential candidate. So you also had Nana Oheninto, whose line unfortunately went bad on us at a point. Thank you very much. As I told you earlier, Nathaniel Atto comes up with Magnus Rex Dankwa to delve into deeper issues of sports. I'm Samson Lardy Anyenini. Have a good afternoon.